Community Church. We're going to get started up here. You're invited to stand and join us. Remember those walls that we called sin and shame? They were like prisons that we couldn't escape. But he came and he died and he rose. Those walls are rubble now. Remember those giants we called death and grave? They were like mountains that stood in our way. But he came and he died and he rose. Those giants are dead now. This is our God, this is who he is. He loves us. This is our God, this is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Remember that fear that took our breath away. Faith so weak that we could barely pray. But he heard every word, every whisper. Now those altars in the wilderness tell the story of his faithfulness. Never once did he fail, and he never will. This is our God, this is who he is. He loves us. This is our God, this is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Who pulled me out of that pit? He did, he did. Who paid for all of our sin? Nobody but Jesus. Who pulled me out of that pit? He did, he did. Who paid for all of our sin? Nobody but Jesus. Who rescued me from that grave? Yahweh, Yahweh. Who gets the glory and praise? Nobody but Jesus. Who rescued me from that grave? Yahweh, Yahweh. Who gets the glory and praise? Nobody but him. This is our God. This is who he is. He loves us. This is our God. This is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Higher than the mountains that I face, stronger than the power of the grave, constant in the trial and the change. This one thing remains. And your love never fails and never gives up. It never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up. It never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up. It never runs out on me. Your love. Your love. On and on and on and on it goes. For it overwhelms and satisfies. it never runs out on me. And your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love, your love, on and on and on and on it goes, for it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I never ever have to be afraid. This one thing stronger than the power of the grave, constant in the trial and the change. Your love remains. My life is built on your faithfulness. My hope is held in your promises. I take each step with your confidence, 'cause I am yours. I am yours. You never fail, you never will. I trust your name for greater things. You will come through, you always do. I trust your name for greater things. You cleared a way in the wilderness. You brought me back from my brokenness. You took my shame and you buried it. What you've done, I won't forget. You never fail, you never will. I trust your name for greater things. You will come through, you always do. I trust your name
you for singing with us. You can have a seat.
Hi, my name's Allie. This is Tom.
Good morning.
So nice to see you on this Sunday morning, especially if this is your first time with us. We're so happy that you're here. We would love to meet you and talk to you. So downstairs, there's a table in the cafe with a big I'm new sign, and there's someone there who can answer any questions you have, chat with you, and they have a gift that you can have just by going by the table there. We also have a connect form that you could fill out there at the table or by scanning the QR code on the seat back in front of you. And if you do that, then we'll also send you a gift card in the mail.
Well, happy spring, everybody.
Yes.
All right. Not sure if it feels like it this morning. Feels like winter's still around with us, but with spring comes Easter. And our Easter services are all coming up starting on Thursday night, the 17th of April at 6:45. That will be our Easter service for Thursday people. And then if you're a Sunday person, watch out. We're having 5 services on Easter Sunday morning. Yes, thanks for the enthusiasm there. We're doing 7 a.m., 8:30, 10, 11:30, and 1 p.m. We're doing all... Yes.
Yeah, that's
Thank
right.
you, Terry.
Yes.
We're doing all those services not because we're just excited to do services but rather we want to make room for you to invite friends, to invite family to attend those services. And if it makes no difference to you, we'd love to have you at our Thursday night service. There's plenty of room there. I think 7 a.m. might be pretty good. And 1 p.m. will also have lots of room, so we want to see you there.
Yeah.
And if you go to the 1 p.m., a special bonus, we're going to have an Easter egg hunt following the service for kids. You're welcome to show up and watch, but if you're an adult, sorry, leave the eggs for the kids. And that'll be all of our Easter services. Hope to see you there.
And tonight we're having our student night, our monthly student night that we have on the 4th Sunday of each month. We invite our 6th to 12th graders to come out. We have a good time. We talk about life. And we have new students that come every week. So if this would be the first time that you or your student would be coming, they don't have to worry about that. So we would love to see you there tonight at 6:30.
Yeah. If you've been a part of Community Church for a while, if you've experienced anything helpful or beneficial from being a part of this community, one, that's awesome. We're glad for that. But also want to let you know that that's largely due in part to the people who call this church their home and have given sacrificially and financially to this church to keep its mission going forward. And if you'd like to partner with us, we'd love for you to do that at communitychurch.net/give.
And if you are active online, we would love if you would share, follow, like the things that come up on our social media pages. It's been so interesting to hear how many people find out about this church by seeing something pop up on Instagram. So honestly, it might seem like a small thing, but it actually makes a big difference, and that's a way that you could support what's going on here. So that's all for us, and we're going to hand things over to Lou, and he will wrap up our series called The Way.
All right. Well, it's great to be together again, especially now it's springtime. Like Tom and Allie said, we're having a whole bunch of services on Easter Sunday and Easter Thursday, in case you didn't know that that's a thing now. But really, 7 a.m., that's going to be a good service. We've never done a service at 7 a.m., and you never know what's going to happen. So also 1 p.m., if you want to go the other direction with that, we've got the Easter egg hunt afterwards. And for the adults, we're going to be giving away real eggs, considering the price of eggs now. Just kidding. We can't afford that. Okay. Well, if you haven't been with us before, we are in the middle of what we call a series, or actually the very end of what we call a series. And so this is a great week to be with us because I'll bring you up to speed real quick. This is a really big series, meaning it's a series that covers a really big general topic. And my hope is that whether you are a follower of Jesus or not, whether church is a big part of your life or not, that this will make sense, or at least help to make sense of what all of this is about. And if you've been with us for the past few weeks, this will be some review for you, but hopefully this will come to mind when you think about the role of religion, which is where we started on week 1 with the question, what is the role of religion? Like, what is it, and what is it supposed to do for me? Or to be specific, when it comes to what we're talking about here, what really did Jesus come to offer? Like, what was he hoping that we would walk away with from all of this? We've talked about some caricatures of a few ways that a lot of us understand the role of religion, what Jesus came to offer us. And these are some oversimplified, imperfect models, but maybe it helps to give words to what you may have experienced for a lot of your life. I know it gives words to what I've experienced for a lot of my life. For some of us, we believe that Jesus came to offer, practically, functionally, he really just came to offer us rules to obey. Like, somebody's got to say what we can do and what we can't do. Someone's got to stop us from killing each other. And so Jesus comes along and is like, okay, thou shalt not, and you should do this, right? And the hope is that, well, if we obey enough of those rules, then we get to go to heaven when we die. And then others of us come from a background, or maybe we inherited a version of religion that really it's just beliefs to adopt. And when I say beliefs, I mean ideas about God that we hope are correct. And if we adopt those correct ideas, then one day we get to go to heaven when we die. And then others of us have come from a tradition that really just feels like Jesus came to offer us just boxes to check. And while we may not use that language, that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, at certain times of the week, I got to do this. I got to go to this place. I got to say this thing. At certain ages, right, we got to do this thing, this ceremony. And if we check enough of the boxes, then we get to go to heaven when we die, right? And there's a lot of ambiguity with all this. There's not a lot of certainty. It's like, well, am I obeying enough of the rules? You know, do I really believe the beliefs? Have I adopted enough of them? The boxes, have I checked off enough of the boxes? I mean, I definitely haven't checked off enough, as many as, my grandfather, but I'm doing a little better than those people. And it's like, really, is this really what Jesus was hoping we'd walk away with? Or is there something more to it than that? And you can probably guess, we believe that there's something more to it than that. We believe Jesus showed up to offer a way to follow. In fact, this is what he said. His invitation was to come and follow him. And when he said way, he offered a way to follow. That's the word for road or path or journey, meaning it leads somewhere. Following him leads somewhere. And it's not just heaven when we die, though hope is a very real thing. He claimed that his way of doing things, his way to follow, led to what he called life to the full, or life more abundant. It doesn't mean health, wealth, and prosperity. It doesn't mean you get all the things on your Christmas list. He's talking about life that is rich in meaning, life that's deeply satisfying, life that's not perfect, but there's a sense that we are finding what we're looking for and getting closer and closer to that. And it comes by following his way. He didn't have a word for Christian. He didn't have a word for a religious person or person of faith. The word that Jesus used to describe the people that he was inviting to come follow him is the word disciple. And so you might remember we took a little field trip on the Magic School Bus and we talked about the rabbi-disciple relationship. This is a popular relationship in the ancient world. Rabbi, in case you don't know or haven't been with us, rabbi means teacher. And disciple means student, but it's not like a classroom teacher-student relationship. It was like the school of life. A disciple was an apprentice of the rabbi, and the hope was that they'd spend all this time together, and eventually the rabbi would have reproduced himself in the life of his disciples. And so there were a bunch of these rabbis during the time that Jesus was around. And when Jesus showed up, people referred to him as rabbi, and he invited people to come, anyone who wanted to come and be his disciple. Now, to make sense of this, there's three things that we need to understand about a disciple. And that's really where we've been going over the past few weeks. On week 2 of the series, but the first goal of being a disciple, we said, is to be with him. A disciple was always with his rabbi. He knew what he ate for breakfast. He knew what his pet peeves were. He knew the kind of clothes that he wore. He knew his allergies, if they had allergies back then, I don't know, right? But they knew each other really, really well. They were with him. And so if you want to be a disciple of Jesus, if you're considering this, or if you are, goal number 1 is to be with him, to spend time with him, not once a week, but all the time. We said, and this is a big, thick, abstract concept we covered on week 2, we said really it's to live with a constant and intentional awareness of his presence with you and his love for you. Or if that's too much for you to remember, like too much for me to remember, it's that he's with you and he's for you. The one who's with you is for you. The one who's for you is with you. He refers to himself as an advocate and said he was sending his Spirit, another advocate, to be with us. And remaining aware of his presence with us does something to us. It's a big, big part of what it means to follow Jesus. Again, that message you can listen to online, but it's a big, big part of it. We started a challenge that day where you could sign up for 2 text messages a day. It's a startup and a check-in. With just the text messages alone, right now we've got over 600 people doing it who are checking in and trying to be aware of God's presence with them. It's unbelievable. Goal number 2 of being a disciple, though, was not just to be with him, but to become like him. The hope was that the disciple would become like the rabbi, or he was with him for the sake of becoming like him, with him to become like him. And so eventually, when they were spending enough time together, eventually they'd start to act the same way. They'd start to respond to the same things the same way. And the goal of a follower of Jesus is to become like him. Now that's a little like, okay, what does that mean? Right? Like, what does it really mean to become like Jesus? We said last week, it really means to become people of love. People of love. Or that's too Valentine's Day Hallmark mushy gushy for you. The idea is to become people who are for people, advocates, people who have a posture of being in the corner of those in their lives, whether they're like them or not, and whether they like them or not. But the church, followers of Jesus, should be more for people than anybody else in the world. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. But that's what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so we stopped there last week, and this week we're looking at the last part, the last goal of being a follower of Jesus. I'll tell you a little story. So a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, probably like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, it was my wife Allie's birthday, and I'm trying not to blow it, you know? Like, I have yet to really hit one out of the park on her birthday. I've gotten her a vacuum before on her birthday. I've done all the things. Yeah, all the things you're not supposed to do, I've done all those things with the best of intentions. And so one year, I'm like, okay, this is the year I'm going to nail it. Spoiler, I don't end up nailing it. But I decided to plan a surprise party for her. And so I had to be a little sneaky. I acted like nothing was going on. But every once in a while, I like to get away, have little secret conversations, text some people. I was acting kind of funny. And at times, I was like, maybe she's on to me, maybe she's not. She was pretty confused. But I was just acting like nothing was coming up. And then on the day of her birthday, I told her, I was like, yeah, let's go out to dinner tonight. You know, where do you want to go? And I was like, I got a place. I'll take us somewhere. And so I planned this surprise party with a bunch of our friends. And the place that I picked to go was Dave and Buster's. Yeah, no one said that when I invited them, right? If you don't know Dave and Buster's, it's like Sports Plus, if you remember Sports Plus. Yeah, it's just like games and just a lot of games. So it would be a great place for me to have my birthday party. So, you know, I'm still kind of playing like nothing's going on. We're in the car, we're driving there, we get to Dave and Buster's, and I'm like, all right, let's go here. And Allie's like, no. And I'm like, no, really, let's go inside. I think this would be a great place to eat. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not going in there. I've got no interest in going to Dave & Buster's. And I'm trying to convince her, and I just can't. I would have had to literally carry her out of the vehicle and eventually I was like, look, a bunch of our friends are in there. There's a whole surprise thing going on. And I was convinced that that moment, it was gonna be like, oh, you're my hero. This is the best thing ever. She still wasn't all that thrilled, all that excited about Dave & Buster's, but she was a lot more excited than if it were just me and her playing arcade games all night. Here's my point of that story. One, there are better places out there to bring your wife for her birthday. Yeah. And two, the moment she found out that there was a surprise party, and you know this if you've ever been on the receiving end of a surprise party, the moment you find out that big piece of information, all the little pieces of information make sense, right? Anything you had questions, like, why is he acting weird? Who is he talking to? What's going on? What's the deal? The second you know, oh, it's a surprise, and everything makes sense. The moment she found out, the big thing made sense of all the little things. And this, for me, what we're talking about today, this third part of being a follower of Jesus, it is, for me, it has been a big thing that makes sense of all the little things. And so whether you're on the Jesus bus or not, whether you're on board with all this church stuff or not, my hope is that understanding this big concept will make sense of all the little things you hear Jesus say along the way. And so if we go back to this rabbi-disciple relationship, okay, back on the Magic School Bus, there's three things. You might remember these from week 1. The first goal is for a disciple to be with his rabbi. That's for the purpose of hopefully becoming like his rabbi. And from that point, the hope, the ultimate hope, after or while becoming like the rabbi, the hope is that he will do what he did. He'll carry on the work of the rabbi. And so if you're thinking about what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus, to follow Jesus, it's to be with him, with the hope of becoming like him, and hopefully ultimately doing what he did, carrying on his work. But then the question is, well, what exactly did he do? You know, the stuff we talk about, some pretty amazing stuff. He walked on water, he healed all these people, he gave sight to the blind, he raised the dead, he did some crazy, is that the stuff that we're supposed to do? What exactly, are we supposed to live in a different part of the world? Are we supposed to walk and not drive? What are we supposed to do? What is the do, right? If you were with us months ago, we did a series called More Than Words. It was a series on the Our Father or the Lord's Prayer. In the beginning of that prayer, what we get is his agenda. What Jesus shares is what he's here to do. And if your story is anything like mine, this was just this is meaningless religious terminology in the beginning of the prayer. But this is his agenda. This is what he came to do. Here's what he says. He says, our Father who art in heaven, right? God in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Meaning, would your name, your reputation be restored? Would people change the way they think about you? Would the world come to understand that you're good, that you love them, that you're for them, and that you can be trusted? Hallowed be your name. You're in a category all on your own. This is his agenda. And then he says this, he says, your kingdom come, your will be done, or thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. To make sense of this, you have to understand how Jesus understood the origin of the human race. And you may not believe this, maybe too far out there for you, but this, according to him, this is how it all makes sense, right? What he believed, you might remember these pictures if you were with us months ago. What he believed is that there was a time when God's space and human space was one, where things were right. It was described as shalom or perfect peace or rest. There wasn't striving. There wasn't chaos. There wasn't brokenness. There wasn't pain. Like things were the way they were supposed to be. And heaven and earth, God's space and human space was in perfect harmony, perfect overlap. But there came a point, according to Jesus, where things separated, where things broke, where things went wrong. And all of a sudden, for the first time, there was separation from God's space and from human space. Things weren't the way that they were supposed to be. And there wasn't only a separation, but there was an infestation. Anybody remember this guy? Spotted lanternfly, is he back yet? Yeah, well, I hope not. This is an invasive species. We've been told by the people that make important decisions that if you see one of these, you're supposed to squish them. Like, just kill them. And then I was told maybe we're not supposed to do that. Then I was told again, no, we are supposed to do that. I'm not totally sure. All I know is they're not supposed to be here. Wherever they go, they wreak havoc and they kill things, right? They're an invasive species. According to Jesus, things were separated, but then they were also contaminated. In other words, there is an invasive species that came and messed things up. What he calls this force is sin or hell. Hell. It's invaded and started to break things down. Jesus' brother James writes about this. Like, hell is not just like a place somewhere out there in a distant realm. It's a force that can cause and destroy, like cause all sorts of destruction right here and now. Jesus' brother James says that like the tongue can be set on fire by hell and cause all sorts of pain and brokenness. Like it can cause problems right here and now. And so there's a separation, an infestation, a contamination, and now it looks like this. But for years, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, people are told one day things will be made right. And this might be, again, I get it. If this is out there for you, like, oh, come on, right? If this is hard to wrap your mind around, I get that. But what's amazing is that all of us, like pretty much the entire human race has come to agree that there is something that's not quite right. Like for some reason, we all have a bent toward destruction. And Jesus would say this makes sense of that. So there's this contamination, this infestation, and for years, people are told, someone is coming to fix this. Someone will come and make things right. Like at some point, this place will begin to look like a good God is restoring things. There's a promise. And Jesus shows up. It's recorded by Mark. It's the earliest documentation we have of Jesus. And the very first thing we're told that Jesus says is this. Okay, this is in Mark's gospel. It says, Jesus went into Galilee proclaiming the good news of God. That good news, it's the word gospel. He went out proclaiming the gospel. Now, I don't know how you would describe the gospel. Gospel means good news. But this is how Jesus described the gospel. Here's what he says. Remember, like you've been waiting for something. He says, the time has come. The kingdom of God, heaven, right? God's reign where things are made right. It has come near. In other words, what Jesus is saying is this contamination and infestation is now beginning to be pushed out. And everywhere Jesus goes, you see these little glimpses of goodness. You see brokenness being undone. You see miracles, like you see, people who are blind receiving sight. You see people being healed. You see extreme expressions of things being made right. But you also see outcasts being welcomed in. You see people who feel worthless finding value. You see things being made right. They're glimpses of goodness. And this is what Jesus came to do, to push this out, to bring the reality of heaven to earth. Not angels and butterflies, but the way things were meant to be, to bring them back, to make things new. Or literally, he's pushing out, he's getting the hell out of here. Getting the hell out. Like undoing what's been broken. This is his agenda. This is what he came here to do. This is the big do that makes sense of all the little do's, right? It's not just go be nice. It's not just say some prayers. It's not just forgive them if you can. it is to be, like, we're invited to be part of a movement that is getting the hell out of earth, that's bringing the reality of heaven here, that's bringing restoration here. And so what Jesus said right before he left, what he said to his followers, like, this is what I've been doing. And here's what he says: very truly I tell you. This is his way of saying, like, highlight this, right? Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me, like you guys, he's talking to his followers, will do the works I have been doing, like a disciple does the works of their rabbi. These works. And he says they'll do even greater things than these because I'm going to the Father. Now, I don't really know what this means. Like, a lot of people argue, oh, what does he mean by greater things? What we know is that it's at least greater in number because there was one Jesus and there's a lot more of us. And then he tells his followers, he says, I will build my church, not like building, but group of people, congregation, assembly. And what does he say? He says, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. He's talking about that picture. These people who take up his work will push out the infestation in all areas of life. Wherever they're going, they'll begin to undo the broken pieces of this world. They'll continue the work that I'm doing through the church. In other words, what he says is, the idea for today is that what he began to do, he's now doing through you and through me. And maybe for you, again, maybe this isn't your thing. Maybe you're like, yeah, I don't know about that, right? But there is part of all of us. There is a part of all of us that wants to be part of something bigger, right? We weren't made to just live in isolation and live for ourselves. It's a small way to live. All of us, like, yearn to be invited into a cause that will outlive us and is worth giving ourselves to, right? And you see it everywhere. It's all over our culture. It's why we're so into sports. You know, we want to be part of something that's bigger than ourselves. We want to have a good cause to root for. Like, this weekend is March Madness. I've watched more basketball in the past few days than I have in years. And my wife, Allie, she's like, how many different ways can people throw a rubber ball through a metal circle? Yeah, but there's just something up. It's like, I'm not connected to these people, but I'm for them. I want to be part of that. It's why we're so into politics, why people feel so strongly about their political views. It's because they want to be part of a cause that's worth giving themselves to. It's worth being part of, that outlives them. And Jesus would say, this is the cause. This is the one. This is the one that matters, that will outlive you. He would say we were made for this. Even the Twix bar is on board with this. Have you seen that? There's like team left Twix and team right Twix. It's like, which one are, it's because this is how we were wired. We were made to be part of something bigger, part of a bigger tribe, a bigger team. And Jesus would say, this is it. Be part of the one that's changing this place. Continue that work. And so we call all of this cause, this big cause, we call it the gospel. It's good news of a new king who's undoing broken things. And we're invited to live it out in our lives. And so, okay, so like regroup. Remember, we're in like the series, The Way, okay? This is how this works. If you start backwards, this is the thing that Jesus came to do, to bring the realities of heaven to earth. And we're invited to do that. So we do what he did. But the way that we do that is not just by giving it our best shot. It's by becoming like him internally, having things reordered and shifted around us internally. And that happens by spending time with him. So think of it like this. Imagine I'm spending time in the morning, right? And I'm thinking about God's generosity and how everything I have is from him. And I quiet my racing thoughts to just think about how each breath, from the breath that I breathe to the car that I have, like all of it is a gift from him. And what that will do is create a feeling of abundance within you. And what that does from being with him is it begins to push out things like greed and feelings of scarcity. And when those things are pushed out, I have a different presence in the world. I become a more generous person, and I continue to carry on his work. right? Or for you, like if you spend some time in the morning thinking about how there's a God who's for you in your corner, and in spite of all the craziness, you can rest and be at peace, and you sit there and breathe and like take in that peace. Sit in it. It begins to push out the feelings of chaos and disorder and anxiety within you. And you show up wherever you're going as a mom, a dad, a boss, wherever, grandparent, student. You show up with a less anxious presence as a person of peace. Or maybe you stop and you think about like God's forgiveness. And like you get real with yourself and think about how often I am selfish, how often I push people out of the way because I want my way. How many different ways I've gone wrong, and think about how I am embraced and forgiven completely. Like I don't have to carry that at all. And that sense of like grace, it begins to do something within me. It's to give me a posture that's more willing to give grace. And then when I'm wronged in the real world, I'm less likely to retaliate. I'm bringing the reality of heaven to earth. It one goes into the other, and it's all part of this big thing. It's the big thing that makes sense of all the little things. It changes what's going on around us, changes the world within us and around us. Or we could say, in order to get the hell out of here, God first needs to get the hell out of me. And then I begin to make a difference. That's living out the good news, living out the reality of Jesus as King, living out what we call the gospel. That's what Jesus did. He lived that out. But there's a second part to this. There's a second thing that Jesus did. At the end of his time with his followers, one of the last things he said to them was to go and make disciples. Go invite people in. In the parallel passage in the Gospel of Mark, he says, go preach the gospel to all creatures, to everyone, all nations. Like the two are one and the same. To invite people in is to preach the gospel. In other words, we're invited to live out the reality of the gospel, but also to give it out, to live it out and to give it out. And we do this by preaching the gospel. I put it in quotes because this idea was never all that appealing to me. You know, like maybe there were times in my life where I was like, all right, like maybe I'll try this Jesus thing, but this was never open to that. I just don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that makes the conversation weird. You know, it's got to bring up my faith. It's got to talk about God. It's got to, find out where you stand with God, because it feels like a personal thing, right? In our culture, that's not something a lot of people are open to. And so for me, it was like, this is not ever something I'm really going to take part in. But I think at least for me, the reason why I was so turned off by this, why I have like an allergy to this idea, is because of the picture that comes to mind when I picture people doing this, right? I picture well-intentioned people shoving something down my throat, or like with the cardboard sign on the corner, preaching the gospel. And it's not like, if that's what this means, then I don't want to be that. But followers of Jesus and Jesus himself, they did what worked in their culture. Peter wrote about it like this, right? And this for me is something that kind of reopened me up to this whole concept. He said this. Peter is a close friend of Jesus. He said this. He said, live such good lives among the pagans. Now, pagans for us in our culture, it's used as an insult. For them, it just meant someone who doesn't believe. He's not insulting anybody here. He says, live such good lives. Good, this word, there is a word for righteous, like moral. And then there's a word for beautiful and attractive, right? The word here, good, is the word for beautiful and attractive. He's saying, live such a good life among those who don't believe that though they may even accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds, the way that you live, and glorify God on the day he visits us. Now, the day he visits us, there's a lot of argument about what he means here. Like, is it a Tuesday, Wednesday? What day is it? We don't know. But that's not the point. The point is, the hope is that if you follow the way of Jesus, there will be something so attractive about the peace that you have, the joy that you live with, the forgiveness and generosity that you show, that people will be drawn in. Not because you're the loudest vocally with your message, but because the way that you live shines the brightest. There's something that draws people into that. And so the point, like Peter's way of preaching the gospel, what he's saying here, he's saying, live a beautiful life. Live a beautiful life. And watch what happens. And he does say, and be prepared to explain why when people ask you. Like, why do you do that? Why do you treat your wife like that? Why do you treat your husband that way? Why does your family value this when it seems like everybody else values this? Like then you can explain, well, for us, it's a faith thing, really. It's because of what we believe. Live a beautiful life. The other side of this comes from the Apostle Paul. He says this all throughout his letters, but he says it most clearly, I think, in his letter to the church in Corinth. And again, for me, this eased the allergy to the idea of preaching the gospel. He says, to the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. And I'll summarize this. He says, to those under the law, I became like those under the law to win those under the law. He says, to those who don't have the law, I became like one who didn't have the law to win those who didn't have the law. He says, to the weak, I became like the weak to win the weak. He says, I become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. And he says, I do this for the sake of what? For the sake of the gospel, for the sake of what Jesus came here to do, to show people that there is a new king who offers us a new and better way of life. But when he describes his approach, in essence what he's saying is do what works. Do what works. Like change your method to fit change your approach to fit your audience. Right? Do what works in the context that you're in. If you read the book of Acts, what you'll see is that Paul goes out like in the center of town and he's having these public debates and people are convinced that Jesus is who he said he was. But he's doing that because in society at that time, people went out in the town square and they would, like there were philosophers, Greek philosophers, they would talk and debate about life and like energy and how all of this came to be. And Paul's like, oh, they're doing that. And he walks into that space and does the same thing. He's not going into the middle of Babylon village screaming from the corner. And I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm saying it might not be the most effective way, right? And for me, that was actually the thing where I was like, I don't want that, whatever that is. Because doesn't really work in our culture. I mean, people try to sell me tickets to the Knicks game from a corner on the street. And I'm like, I'm not sure about you. What he's saying, do what works. For us, what we believe is what works here. We think what works here when it comes to the whole church thing is doing something like an online service and letting people watch service from a distance to see whether or not we're crazy or if this is something that they'd be interested in stepping into. And then from there, we meet in a room that's dark. And so if you're not sure, you can come sit in the back and like sneak out if things get a little too crazy for you. And if you don't know what to do with your hands when you're told to stand up and sing, because that's not something people do all the time in different places in our culture, it's nice to have like coffee and a bagel. And there's something that's disarming about that. And so for me, I think this is where it gets fun. Like you think, what can we do to most effectively communicate all of this for the sake of the gospel, like Jesus says? How can we have everything working for us? And so if there's someone in your life who's like you that you're trying to get through to, the question I'd encourage you to ask is, like what would I need to get through to me when all of this was new to me? Like what would have worked for me? And tailor your approach to that audience. All of this, though, it's living out the gospel and giving out the gospel. It's because what he began to do, he's now doing through you. He met people where they were and he gave them what they were looking for. He adjusted his approach to his audience. There's this famous campaign I think it started in the 90s. They gave out bracelets. They called it WWJD. Some of you know this. It stands for, what would Jesus do? People wore bracelets. It was a good thing to ask, because if you're thinking about doing the things Jesus did, it's good to ask, what would Jesus do? I used to wear one of those bracelets. In the book, though, John Mark Comer, this is a book that we've been referencing frequently throughout the series. It's called Practicing the Way. He suggests another acronym. He says, for us, he's like, I think the question is WWJDIHWM. Obviously. But it stands for, what would Jesus do if he were me? And that's really the question. If Jesus were a mom, like you, what kind of mom would he be? If he had your job, how would he carry himself at work? If you were a teacher, if you were a student, if you had your friends, if you want to get more specific, if you were in the conflict that you're in right now, what would he do? If he was experiencing the pain you were experiencing right now, how would he handle it? What would he do if he were you right now? And there's something about that question that causes us to look internally, that just begins to shape who we're becoming as we're more and more aware of his presence with us. And so that's what it means to follow Jesus. To be with him, to become like him, to do what he did. And today, and tomorrow, you and I are given an invitation that I think, and Jesus thought, can potentially be the most life-changing invitation that you ever receive. The most world-changing invitation that you ever receive. It's the invitation to follow him, to be his disciple, to be with him, to become like him, and to do what he did. Let's pray. God, we're grateful that it is a gift. All of this is a gift from beginning to end. That we don't have to earn it. We don't have to work for it. It's not something that we can purchase, but it's something that has been purchased for us because of the way you have made for us. And so, God, would you help all of us to think about what these questions mean for us? Would you meet us where we are, like you've done so many times before, whether we're just kicking the tires and trying to figure this out, or whether we're decades into it and we're still trying to figure out what it looks like to follow you on a daily basis. Would you show us? Would you help us? Would you be our advocate? Would you walk alongside us? Help us to become more aware of your presence with us. Would you help us to become more like you? And in doing that, God, here in this little corner of the world that we live in, would you help us to do what you did? To bring the realities of heaven to earth here in our lives. Would your kingdom come? Would your will be done right here and in us as it is in heaven? In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We're going to sing one more song together if you'd like to stand.
If you're troubled, heavy-hearted, just come to Jesus and find your peace. If you're run down, empty-handed, Just come to Jesus and find your strength. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. He is. If you're wandering in the darkness, just come to Jesus and find your way. If you want freedom and need forgiveness, just come to Jesus and find His grace. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. He is Comforter, Counselor, Prince of Peace, Author and Maker of everything, Defender, Deliverer, King of Kings. He is Helper and Healer forevermore, Savior and shelter through every storm, my refuge, Redeemer and Lord of Lords. He is Child of Heaven, Son of Man, Provider, Protector, the great I am, Alpha, Omega, beginning and end. He is hope for the hopeless, rest for the weary, help for the hurting. He is mending the broken, bearing the burdens, all that you're needing. All that you're needing.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.